This country was built on a set of gentlemen's agreements and the assumption that, regardless of political differences, everyone in the government would want to preserve democracy. But that's just not the case.
Project 2025, which is dedicated to creating the playbook for the next conservative administration. It calls for eliminating the Department of Education, eliminating the Department of Commerce, deploying the military for the use of domestic law enforcement against protesters. It also prohibits the FBI from combating the spread of misinformation and disinformation.
You get enough people in DC who are anti-democracy, and we do not have the fail-safes for that. The system will just fall apart. Project 2025 is a conservative policy plan to fundamentally reshape the government and in turn take over the country if Trump is elected in 2024. It's backed by over 100 conservative organizations, and honestly, this list could constitute a whole video just by itself. But some notable orgs are the Center for Renewing America, a Christian nationalist group that promotes the theory, Moms for Liberty, a far-right extremist group that favorably quoted Hitler, and the Alliance Defending Freedom, who I've talked about before. The Alliance Defending Freedom is an evangelical Christian legal group that purports to fight against the homosexual agenda, supports recriminalizing homosexuality, supports conversion therapy, defended state-enforced sterilization of transgender people, and has helped draft anti-trans bills in 20-plus states in the US. From Project 2025's introduction, the long march of cultural Marxism through our institutions has come to pass. Our goal is to assemble an army of aligned, vetted, trained, and prepared conservatives to go to work on day one to deconstruct the administrative state. As we'll come to find, an administrative state is actually necessary for the functioning of our government, so what these guys want to do is not destroy it, but restaff it with their own guys. Fascists don't like bureaucrats, because bureaucrats deal in numbers and figures and tend to be very procedural. Fascists don't like these things. They want loud, dumb action. They don't want to have to cross-check things with experts and technicians, they just want it done their way. The dismantling of bureaucracy has been a core component of many historical fascist regimes. And it makes sense. If you watch the January 6th hearings, which I did, a couple bureaucrats were largely what stood between Trump and a successful election takeover. So next time he's in office, they want to make sure all the adults are out of the room. Project 2025 has 4 pillars. The first is policy, a nearly 1,000-page manifesto that aims to tear down the administrative state and give unchecked power to the president. The second is the personnel database. This is where they collect information from tens of thousands of conservatives to source the best people to pack every administrative body in DC. As the project's director puts it,
what we're doing is systematically preparing to march into office and bring a new army of aligned, trained, essentially weaponized conservatives ready to do battle against the deep state.
To make sure their crowdsourced conservative warriors are ready to carry out the goals of their manifesto, they need Pillar 3, training. The Presidential Administration Academy is a program of online and in-person classes to prepare our army of conservatives to flood the zone come 2025. Your application has to be accepted in order to access the program, and I don't know how intense their vetting process is, but maybe one of these days I'll try and get into it. Pillar 4 is the 180-day playbook. This is what it sounds like, a methodical guide to implementing the policies of the manifesto efficiently and systematically in the first 6 months of the presidency. Through these 4 pillars, Project 2025 aims to overhaul the entire government from the inside out, replacing it with their own swarm of far-right foot soldiers who will implement their laundry list of draconian policies. So what are these policies? I gave you a hint of them in the intro, but let's really look into this manifesto. The introduction to this book is written like it's for a top-secret spy expedition. Welcome to the mission. By opening this book, you are now a part of it. It's clearly playing into the conservative wet dream of a militant government takeover like the one they attempted on January 6th. In terms of the actual content, like I mentioned before, one of the primary goals of Project 2025 is to gut the administrative state and concentrate power in the hands of the president. So what is the administrative state? It basically refers to agencies like the FDA, the EPA, the DHS, which manage the day-to-day operations of certain government organizations and have the power to enforce laws or implement regulations. It's a lot of Asians. The idea is that running a country is a big task, so we have specialized agencies to handle areas that require a greater degree of expertise. So the EPA, for example, should be headed by someone who has made a career studying environmental protection and policy. Or in Trump's case, a climate skeptic who said maybe global warming is a good thing, and then an energy lobbyist who wanted to roll back emissions limits on auto companies even when those companies wanted to keep them. But I digress. The book argues that presidential power is being delegated to too many federal agencies, and we should be firing these unelected bureaucrats who infuse US foreign aid programs with woke extremism about intersectionality and abortion. I don't even know. Basically, we should be gutting federal agencies in favor of the unitary executive theory. So what's the unitary executive theory? Basically, there's this idea that the US government should be run by 3 relatively equal branches that enforce checks and balances on each other so no one branch becomes too powerful. The unitary executive theory says to hell with all that, the president has the power to control the entire executive branch, and neither Congress nor the federal courts can tell the president what to do or how to do it. So, how do we procedurally disempower these systems of checks on the president? At the end of Trump's presidency, he floated the concept of Schedule F employment, which exempted 50,000 federal employees from civil service protections, meaning they could be fired at will for perceived disloyalty to him. But Project 2025 advisors have made it clear that this was not enough. Senior advisor John McEntee has said, "Our current executive branch was conceived of by liberals for the purpose of promulgating liberal policies. There is no way to make the existing structure function in a conservative manner. It's not enough to get the personnel right. What's necessary is a complete system overhaul." Or as the book puts it, "We solve these problems not by trimming and reshaping the leaves, but by ripping out the trees, root and branch." So, what happens after the trees are ripped out? What do conservatives want to do with all this power? We'll start by restructuring the radical liberal Department of Justice so that litigation decisions must be made consistent with the president's agenda, reviewing all major FBI investigations and terminating any that are contrary to the national interest, installing an FBI director who is politically accountable to the president, and getting rid of the 10-year term limit. Wonder what that's about. Euphemistically call for the next conservative administration to do There's a joke to be made about the thunder here. I don't know what it is. This is like that PragerU climate change video where she says climate change and thunder cracks. Euphemistically call for the next conservative administration to do everything possible to attain finality for the 44 prisoners currently on federal death row. For reference, in the last 6 months of his presidency, Trump oversaw 13 federal executions, a considerable jump from the 3 that had been performed in the preceding 60 years. Rename the Department of Health and Human Services to the Department of Life, in turn eliminating the Reproductive Healthcare Access Task Force and replacing it with a pro-life task force. Strike any mention of abortion, reproductive health, or reproductive rights from government laws, policies, and regulations, and call upon the CDC to eliminate any programs or projects deemed pro-abortion. Allow employers to deny coverage for contraception for religious reasons and eliminate the morning after pill from the mandate. Ban stem cell research. In fact, no government funding for any research unless it serves the national interest in a concrete way in line with conservative principles. End the focus on climate change and eliminate energy efficiency standards. Eliminate the Clean Energy Corps and the Climate Hub Office and withdraw from the Paris Agreement. End the war on fossil fuels. Gut endangered species protections. Remove terms like gender, gender equality, gender equity, and gender awareness from all government documents. Stop all research related to gender identity. Get rid of regulations that prohibit discrimination on the basis of gender or sexual orientation. Outlaw pornography and expand the definition of pornography to include the public existence of trans people. Classify educators and librarians who purvey trans-inclusive content as registered sex offenders. Maintain a biblically based social science reinforced definition of marriage and family. That's internally contradictory, by the way. Oh, also, we should re-examine if we even want to give press a place in the White House anymore. God, this book is long. And that's just what's in there, not even to mention what the advisors and proponents are saying in the press and in other channels. And if Trump is elected and this plan succeeds, we're cooked. Seriously. There's a similar conundrum to the paradox of tolerance when it comes to democracy. Democracy cannot survive in the hands of someone who's anti-democratic. You elect someone who wants to do away with elections, that's it. And this is all out in the open for anyone to read. Imagine what kind of stuff they're planning that they aren't telling us about. It's the brainchild of the Heritage Foundation, whose policy and judicial recommendations Trump followed closely in his first term. The Republican Party is already fully and openly in favor of election manipulation and voter suppression. Not only have they demonstrated this repeatedly, and if you look at which areas of the US have had the greatest degree of postal service intervention compared to which areas voted blue in the 2016 election, interesting.
This proposed order directs the Secretary of Defense to seize voting machines, quote, effective immediately. Under the order, President Trump would appoint a special counsel and then charge people with crimes with all resources necessary to carry out her duties.
They're also vocal about it. This is the co-founder of the aforementioned Heritage Foundation.
They want everybody to vote. I don't want everybody to vote. As a matter of fact, our leverage in the elections quite candidly goes up as the voting populace goes down.
Voter ID, which is going to allow Governor Romney to win the state of Pennsylvania. Done.
Texas AG says Trump would have lost state if it hadn't blocked mail-in ballot applications being sent out.
He had things, levels of voting that if you ever agreed to it, you'd never have a Republican elected in this country again.
We just had a 6-3 Supreme Court decision to uphold race-based gerrymandering in South Carolina. Clarence Thomas also used his concurring opinion to rebuke Brown v. Board of Education, which, oh my god, I could go on and on just about that. But remember that Trump appointed 3 of those 6 judges who voted to keep a map that was unanimously found within the state to be racially discriminatory. And I see lefties online being like, oh, Roe v. Wade was overturned in a Biden presidency. And it's like, man, we need civics classes. Don't fall into the trap of complacency and doomerism. The other guy is worse, I promise. From a progressive point of view, all your issues with Biden are going to be exponentially worse under Trump, and their plan is to overhaul our democratic system so you can't get him out once he starts. I've been seeing a lot of anti-electoral lefties online denouncing lesser evil voting and saying that not voting means you're not complicit in the outcome. I'm sure thousands of pregnant people bleeding out in hospital parking lots will really admire your moral purity. You know, by choosing not to vote, you're also doing a lesser evil calculation, namely that millions of vulnerable people having their lives destroyed is the lesser evil compared to your self-righteousness taking even a momentary hit. Ugh, sorry, it pisses me off though. Tens of millions of deportations, 30 million people losing healthcare, abortion bans in red states. They're gonna flatten Gaza and turn it into a resort. So many lives are at stake. You don't think voting is enough? Do more! It's that Basil tweet all over again. But in November, please vote. It's serious business. Okay, bye. It's you!